Hey everyone, I'm Enrico from John B. Anthony Company. Today I'm going to show you how to set up your Allen Heath SQ console to record onto your computer, getting every individual track. This is great for recording a mix later on, or you want to keep your tracks for a virtual sound check. I've got an SQ6 with me, but the process is identical for both the SQ5 and SQ7. I'm going to show you how to set this up for Pro Tools. We have two ways that we can record with the SQ consoles. First, the SQ can record up to 32 channels over the USB port on the back of our SQ. With firmware 1.5 and higher, you can record up to 32 channels of your choice at 48K or 96K. If you're using more than 32 channels, I'd recommend using the SQ Dante card and recording through that. In either case, we can make a direct connection from our SQ to the computer. If you're using Dante, your SQ and computer can be plugged into the same router if a direct connection isn't possible. Today, I'm connected over USB, so let's go and set up our SQ to output over USB. First, we need to decide if we want to record at 96K or 48K. SQs are always running internally at 96K, but as a firmware 1.5, you can record over USB in 48K if you want. This is still higher than streaming quality, and it's going to take up half the hard drive space. Also, if you're using an older computer, it's going to be able to write all that data without struggling. Let's press Setup, select Audio, and then select USB. To record to your computer, you're going to want to take USB mode and put it towards USB-B. SQ drive is for when you want to record onto a thumb drive that's plugged into your SQ. Now we need to set our sample rate. I'm going to select 48K and hit Apply now that I'm done. Next, let's head over to the I/O page, select Outputs, Input Direct Out, and USB. Now, hit Patch all your channels. This is going to give us all 32 channels on each of their own outputs. Again, if we need more channels, you're going to need the SQ Dante card and want to repeat this process for the Input Direct Outputs on the I/O port instead of USB. If you're setting up a recording for a virtual sound check later on, I'd also recommend setting up a scene specifically for this with USB inputs for each channel. Now that our SQ is set up to send each channel over USB, let's head over to Pro Tools and set up our inputs. I'm on a Mac, so there's no driver to download. If you're on a PC, you'll need to download SQ Driver from the Allen Heath site, which I've linked down below for you. That covers the setup of the SQ. Let's head over to Pro Tools. So I booted up Pro Tools, and as always, it brought me to my dashboard. I'm going to cancel out of this and head over to Setup and Playback Engine. Here, I want to set this to SQ Audio, and then my hardware buffer size I want at 64 samples because I'm going to be tracking. When I'm going to mix, you might want to change that just so you have as much mixing power as possible. After that, we can head over to I/O and set up our inputs and our outputs. You can see here that I have 32 inputs, all individualized for each of my SQ inputs. So just to show you how to go and add these, I'm just going to temporarily delete those, and let's add a path. And I'm going to do 4. You can do 32 if you want to add all 32 of your SQ. I'm going to type in SQ. It numbered all of them for me. So I'm going to drag these back up top so everything's in order. I'm going to patch them. You can see I did SQ1 to 1, SQ2 to 2, etc. Then head over to Outputs and repeat this process. The thing you want to note here is if you're using your SQ like an interface and doing this as a recording session, not necessarily for a virtual sound check, you're going to want a main output, and you're going to want to make that your 1 and 2 of the SQ. So you can see that I set that up here, but I do have some subpaths that I labeled SQ1 and SQ2 instead of left and right. So that when I'm doing a virtual sound check, I can go 1 through 32 for my outputs and have them all in sequential order. So it's the same thing as the input. You do a new path, and then you type in the number of channels you want to add, maxing out at 32, and whatever you'd like to label them as. Something you want to double check once you add outputs is you go over to your bus tab. So here, my main outputs, if I was using this like an interface, I want to select this as the SQ main label that I created. Or if I'm using this for recording a virtual sound check that I need to output out all 32 channels when I'm done, you want to make sure that you have them mapped to their individual outputs. So you can see here everything is in order. Sometimes Pro Tools does this automatically, sometimes it doesn't. So just make sure you double check that it's appropriate. So you can just click here to adjust to the appropriate output. Now that that's all set up, I'm going to go and make my new session. I'm just going to label this SQ for the purposes of the demo. Let's open up our new session. Here's my blank Pro Tools session. I'm going to do Shift Command N, and I'm going to add 32 SQ inputs, all as audio tracks, and mono for that matter. So create. There you go. I have 32 inputs that I can go and record enable by doing Shift Option. If they're all selected, it'll do that to everything, or you can make a group for this as well. If you're doing a virtual sound check, you'll notice that right now I have everything going to main left and right outputs. If I wanted to do that in sequential order so that everything's patched correctly, save yourself a ton of time. Do Shift Option Command and then select. Here, you'll now see everything is going out in sequential order. Once I figured that out, that was a huge time saver for me. I actually didn't know that one for a few years. That's how you can go and just set up your Pro Tools routing. Just make sure you hit record on every track once you're ready to go. That covers everything you need to record from your SQ into your computer. That's how I primarily do capture of a live event or record something for a virtual sound check. The SQ is just as well suited as your primary studio interface. In fact, I'd recommend setting up the inputs the exact same way. If you're recording a band, adding one of the stage boxes like the ME1 or the ME500 is going to save you a ton of processing during tracking. The SQ has 0.7 milliseconds of latency. So if you're doing headphone mixes for the band with the SQ, you'll never run into any noticeable lag. If you need a click track, you can route one out from Pro Tools into the SQ the same way you'd patch a channel for a virtual sound check. There's a few different ways that you can set up the SQ to record, but this is how I do it. If you'd like to see how to set up another DAW like Logic or Trax Live, let me know down in the comments. If you have any questions, you can leave them there as well. If you found this video helpful, make sure you hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe to JBA University and hit the notification bell so you find out when we put out more videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.